China is responding to what unfolded as well, claiming they had lost control of what they're calling an unmanned civilian balloon and insisting the White House is overreacting. That balloon, though, didn't just hover above the U.S. It came through parts of this country, or over parts of this country, rather, on its way there, too. So what could all of this mean for Canada's relationship with China? MPs are here to talk about that with us this evening. Liberal MP Tlaib Noor Mohammed, Conservative Foreign Affairs critic Michael Chong, and NDP National Defence critic Lindsay Matheson. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. Mr. Mohammed, when this balloon was above Canada, was it spying on Canadians, on Canadian military infrastructure? Was it spying on Canada?
I think what we know is that our military was actively engaged when we did find out, and there was a full review done, full analysis done by the military, and they were confident there was no imminent threat to Canadians, and that everything that was being done to monitor and to surveil that balloon in collaboration with NORAD partners, of course, the United States, and we can feel confident in the work that our defense department did.
So the U.S. and the Defense Department there has said unequivocally that this was a surveillance balloon and it was spying on American infrastructure, among other things. So my original question to you, and I take your point that you're working in concert with the U.S., was it doing the same when it was over Canada? I mean, we can
only assume that what it was doing in the United States, it was doing here, and this is where I think our strong relationship with the United States and frankly. The skill of our military in ensuring that our infrastructure and our information was protected, they would have done exactly what they would do under such circumstances. They are trained to do. They are trained to protect Canada in these circumstances.
Well, the relationship, Mr. Chong, with the U.S. is certainly strong when it comes to information sharing. Clearly, this is more evidence that the relationship with China, already strained, is very strained. What do you make of what happened, and what should we be drawing from it?
Well, I think the balloon highlights the need for the Trudeau government to do three things. First, we have to end research collaboration, the funding of research by the federal government in the areas of quantum cryptography, photonics, and space science. Exactly the kinds of technologies this spy balloon was using to surveil North America, both Canada and the United States.
Do you mean through universities or through NSERC? Because NSERC, they have changed the rules around.
Well, they haven't, actually. They've issued guidelines which aren't preventing the granting councils. I want a ban. I want a ministerial policy directive that bans the Canadian government funding research in collaboration with Beijing's military university, the National University for Defense Technology. That research is still taking place despite the government's guidelines, which clearly aren't working. That's why it's time for a ministerial order, a ministerial policy directive banning this kind of research collaboration. The other two things the government needs to do, this highlights the need for the government to come clean with Canadians on the costs and the timelines to renew NORAD's early warning system, which was built in the 1980s and is woefully inadequate to dealing with the threats we're facing. And finally, we need to join ballistic missile defense. Those are the three things that we need to do. And I think this balloon that drifted through our airspace this weekend highlights why we need to do those three things.
On the third one, ballistic missile defense, I remember covering it when Jason Kenney the former Premier of Alberta, was Minister of Defense, and it was ultimately the Conservatives who initially decided against it. The Liberals have reiterated
well,
that
it was
decision.
initially the Martin government of
Everybody
2004
has,
that decided against joining it.
Do you concede that was a mistake across party lines?
Well, not back then. China wasn't the threat it is today. That started to change about 5-6 years ago when the characteristics of President Xi's regime became clear. When it became clear that he was not going to join
just more widely reported?
the rules-based international order. Sorry?
Or maybe just more widely reported. I mean, there were human rights abuses committed in China prior to 5 years ago.
Not of the scale we're seeing today. He becomes president in 2012. It takes about 4 years for Western countries to understand that he's going to be a very different president than his predecessor, President Hu. And so I think by 2016, 2017, it becomes clear, which is why CSIS in 2018 warns the Canadian government against research collaboration in sensitive areas of research, the advice that the current government has ignored.
Okay, let's pick up on that subject, Ms. Matheson, because from my understanding, from my reading, the U.S. has kind of put out this edict. Don't collaborate with these researchers. I think even under President Obama is when it happened. Would you agree with Mr. Chong's position that the federal government consider the same idea?
I think that all options need to be explored. We need to study this more. But one of the things that I am concerned about and want to see is, of course, to have this balloon back. I know that the divers are trying to find it. They're trying to find pieces of it so that we can actually see specifically with absolute proof that this is in case effect. oftentimes.
Are you worried that there's a lack of proof right now? I mean, there
I
are
wanna
U.S.
see it,
jets
though.
that went in to make sure that there weren't weapons on it. Like, they know there were high-resolution cameras on
Right.
it. You don't believe that?
It's not that I don't believe it. It's that I want to see the proof. It's that I want to see before we start charging forward that we have absolutely all information that we need
Right.
to make that really good judgment call. And I think that Michael's absolutely right in terms of funding of NORAD, in terms of our upgrading and modernization of NORAD, and that partnership with the United States, that we move forward in that way, that we continue to ensure that Canadians, our information, our infrastructure is all safe, but that we have to have that proof.
But can I just challenge you for a moment respectfully on that? Like, what about China's pattern of behavior would make this being a surveillance balloon out of the ordinary for what it does? Like, why wouldn't you believe what the Pentagon says?
I'm not saying that I don't believe what the Pentagon says. I'm saying that
proof is hard to find if the thing blew up over the ocean, right?
Right, and they're doing that dive now, and they're trying to find what that proof is, right? So they find that, we go forward. One of the things that we have to be careful of, one of the things that we have to be careful of is, again, that charging ahead. The more aggressive we are, the more aggressive China is. So we
I
have
get
to,
that, but this isn't the first thing that they've done in this vein. That's why I'm challenging you. Do you know what I'm saying? Like this, like you're waiting for proof that exploded into a million pieces when this is a balloon that did have high resolution cameras on it that was floating above Canada and the United States.
It didn't explode into a million pieces. There are pieces of it that are available. They have to go find them. We have to examine that. But the point is that we continue on to ensure that we go forward with that NORAD modernization, something that helped us in this situation, that partnership in terms of the United States that we have, and we move forward with that to ensure that Canadians and our information is safe. But it's clear information.
Okay, I have time just for one more question. I'm going to pick up on what both your colleagues said, Mr. Nur Mohammed. Why hasn't the federal government been more specific with the idea that researchers at university are collaborating with researchers essentially funded by the Chinese military? Like, is that, if President Obama years ago could say that's a no-go, why haven't you yet?
So I think there's a couple of things. First is the guidelines have worked, right? We have 60% of the project proposals that were submitted were rejected on national security grounds. Now, that doesn't mean we can't do more. Minister Champagne has been, since we've seen the new posture of President Xi, been actively engaged in talking to university presidents about ensuring that Canada's national security is paramount in all of these conversations, that we do not go down the road of creating additional grief and additional, frankly, risk for Canada. And we are committed to that, and we're going to keep leaning in.
But there are still universities working with these groups. Like, this is still very active, right? Regardless of NSERC funding it, the universities are free to do it on their own.
And this is where...
Do you have a problem with that?
No, I do think we need to do more, and I do think that this is where Minister Champagne, working with the universities now, is having some very, very important conversations, and those conversations will lead to action. And I think we're all unified in making sure that we are taking the steps to keep Canadians safe, and this is not and should not be a partisan issue.
Okay, I have to really quick because I have to go. I'm so sorry.
60% of the applications were rejected. That means 40% of the applications were approved to fund research in collaboration with China's military. It's proof that the guidelines aren't working right there.
I promise you this will be a discussion in the future because the threat of China and the disintegration of the relationship between our two countries is certainly not anytime soon. So thank you very much, Talib Nur Mohammed, Michael Chong, and Lindsay Matheson.